All right, so move on to the next segment. I'll be sharing my David Benavidez versus Oleksandr Gvozdyk fight summary. So, last night in the sport of boxing, in the co-main event of the Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin card, we seen David Benavidez take on Oleksandr Gvozdyk in a lightweight interim championship fight last night in the co-main event. You've seen David Benavidez defeat Oleksandr Gvozdyk by decision to become the new interim WBC light heavyweight champion in the sport of boxing. Now, I always study my film and always replay what I say in every single episode. So I did make a mistake last week when I covered this fight. My apologies. I take that one on the chin. I actually said that the WBA interim title would be on the line for this fight, and I was completely wrong. It was the WBC title, and it caught me off guard when I saw the weigh-ins and things like that over the last few days. So that's my apologies for giving you guys false information. But let's get into the fight summary. My thoughts on this fight. I thought David Benavidez did a pretty solid job, a pretty good performance for making his debut at the light heavyweight division last night in the sport of boxing. David Benavidez looked pretty good to me. He fought a former world champion at this division, and Oleksandr Gvozdyk, who was the former WBC light heavyweight champion years ago before he lost that title unification fight to Arthur Benavidez, which at the time was his only loss. So now David Benavidez is the only second person in boxing to defeat him. So this was a good win on David Benavidez's resume, especially making the climb up from the super middleweight division to the light heavyweight division. And I know that David Benavidez was kind of hard on himself. I listened to him in post interviews after the fight saying that he was not 100%. But for you saying you're not 100%, you dominated. He has nothing to be ashamed of. I know he wanted the knockout, but he dominated a former world champion in Oleksandr Gvozdyk. I mean, there was moments in this fight. I think the best moments of this fight from David Benavidez came in the first half of the fight, where he was finding a lot of success landing hooks, where I thought he was going to get Oleksandr Gvozdyk out of there. Alexander made adjustments defensively, but I like the body shots that David Benavidez was landing as well. And David Benavidez has nothing been ashamed of. He landed 223 punches, 163 power punches landed. That was a complete domination for 12 rounds. Hey, I'm giving him a round of applause because that's hard to do. Moving up to a new weight division and having a dominant performance like he did. So I think David Benavidez will be just fine at this division. A lot of Canelo stains might say, oh, well, Canelo didn't do that in his debut at 170. Look, I don't want to hear it. David Benavidez looked good last night. Looked really, really good in his performance last night. Just didn't get the knockout like he wanted. But what's next for David Benavidez? So let's look here. David Benavidez is now the interim WBA light heavyweight champion. And he is in WBC, as I go again with the WBA, WBC interim light heavyweight champion. So this puts him in good position in his division, because now he could sit back and possibly look at what's going to happen in a later part of 2024, when we see the when we see the undisputed championship fight between Dimitri Bivol and Arthur Benavidez, when they will be fighting for all the glitz, all the glamour, all the gold at 175 this fall. So he's in good position to possibly fight the winner of that fight. And I think instead of being complacent, instead of sitting out, waiting for that fight, David Benavidez could also get himself another fight by the end of 2024. Now, obviously, he still wants to fight Canelo Alvarez. In my opinion, I don't know if at this point if we're ever going to get David Benavidez versus Canelo Alvarez, because Canelo Alvarez is purposely pricing himself out, wanting $200 million to fight David Benavidez, which doesn't make sense. In all due respect, Canelo Alvarez has fought some top-tier competition and has never demanded $200 million in his entire boxing career. So that shows me that you know that David Benavidez is a true threat. He is somebody that can possibly give you your third loss, so why not ask for $200 million? He's a good businessman. I'll give him that. But I don't know if this fight's really going to happen. So I think David Benavidez still calling out Canelo. He needs to fade away from that. Just focus at 175. And the perfect opponent for him by the end of the year, while Dimitri Bivol and Arthur Benavidez are busy, I would have him fight David Morrell. David Morrell is also an up-and-coming fighter that has a lot of skills, a lot of power, fights in a similar way that David Benavidez likes to fight. So I think that would be a fun fight between David Benavidez and David Morrell if we get that by the end of 2024, whether that's at the super middleweight division at 168 or the light heavyweight division at 175. I think that would be a compelling fight, and I think if David Benavidez could defeat David Morrell, I don't know who would be able to stop him, because that's a big test before you possibly fight the winner of Bivol Beterbiev, or you possibly, fingers crossed, you would get that dream fight against Canelo. So that's my thoughts on David Benavidez, what's next for him. But that is my fight summary on the co-main event of the Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin card between David Benavidez and Oleksandr Gvozdyk.